Hello and welcome to our drawing video. My name's Emily and today I'm going to show you how to draw a landscape. All you need is a piece of card, some paint, a brush and a water pot. Got everything? Let's get started. I'm going to show you how to put together a composition for a landscape. I'm going to use acrylic paint, but you can use other materials if you prefer. To start, let's divide our landscape into 3 parts. Foreground, middle ground, and this top section will be background. I'm also going to divide it into 3 across. This will help me to map out my picture, make it look really visually interesting. Landscapes tend to look best divided into 3 sections. This is called the rule of 3. I'm going to draw a green area for grass in the foreground. Some hills in the middle ground. Going to put a hill in each section. I'm just putting the paint on quite quickly at the moment, quite big brush strokes, because this is just the background, so I'm going to add a little bit more detail later. I'm just being quite relaxed about it at the moment. I'm blending a little bit of darker green into the brown, just to give the hills a little bit more depth. Adding a little bit of shadow just to the top of that hill there, just because it's a little bit further away. Do the same there. And then make it a little bit lighter down the bottom here. So I'm just thinking about how the light's falling on those hills. I'm imagining that my sun would be here, so I'm putting some darker shadow on this side of the mountain, and then I'm going to put some lighter colour, lighter shading on this side. Finally, in the 3rd section of my picture, I'm going to do the sky. So I'm just going to get some blue paint to start with. Again, at this stage, this is the background. I'm really just getting it on, not worrying too much at the moment about my brush marks or anything like that. I just want a nice bright blue background. I don't really want to see any white gaps in the paper, so I'm going to make sure that all of those are covered. And then to make my sky a little bit more realistic, I'm going to add some clouds. And what I'm going to do for the clouds is I'm going to dab some paint on. So I'm just doing little dots of paint. Add a little bit more white to that. So I'm just putting clouds in at random. This is an imaginary landscape. So I'm putting clouds where I think they look good. So that's my clouds done. Now let's add a river. The river will get wider as it comes towards us and be smaller from a distance. This is called perspective. We can create perspective using a vanishing point. I'm going to put the vanishing point between these two hills here. And I'm going to very faintly with my brush draw two diagonal lines down to the bottom. Rivers aren't straight, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a bigger brush and I'm going to start building in some curves. So I'm going to put a curve here. I'm just breaking up my diagonal line a bit, put a little curve there. And then from this side, I'm going to put a curve there and a curve there. Don't worry about this bit, we can paint back over it. So I'm just going to paint over that bit of line that I don't need. There's a little bit here that I don't need either. Let's get rid of those bits. And now I have the outline of my river. I'm going to fill that in. Again, big brush marks. I am curving my brush marks slightly this time just to follow the shape of the river. Going to add some little waves to my river. So if it's really flowing between these two hills, so I'm just using a darker blue to start with. I'm blending it in, so the paint underneath is still wet, which means when I press down on it, the two blues are mixing together a little bit. I'm going to add some white now. I want to blend these in a little bit so they're not so obvious. So where there's some really bright white, I'm just going to go over it with the brush so that the colours blend together a little bit more. That will make it look more like a natural water. We don't tend to see the waves that obviously. So there's my river flowing from between these two hills down to the bottom of the picture. Now it's time for some trees. I'm going to paint a really big tree in the foreground. As the tree is close to us, it will appear to be larger. I'm going to start with the side of my brush like this for the tree, because I want a nice wide trunk. As I'm getting towards the top of the tree, I'm lifting my brush off the paper just to get those really delicate branches at the top. Again, I can go back to the bottom, make that trunk a little bit fatter, and then get my branches just coming out of there like that. So I've got a much more delicate point at the top of the tree, much fatter trunk at the bottom. I'm going to swap to a finer brush. It looks really big and it's taller than the mountains because it's in the foreground. So because those mountains are far away, they appear to be much, much smaller than the tree, which is right next to us. So I'm just using my little brush now, just to make the shape of that a little bit nicer. Might add another little branch there. Going to add some leaves to the tree now. Like with the clouds, I'm just going to dab my leaves on. I want to get a sense of the sunlight catching the tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a lighter shade of green on some of the leaves, particularly the leaves towards the top of the tree, just to give a sense of light. And there's my tree. So I'm going to add some smaller trees in the distance now, and I'm going to add them in the final third of the painting. These trees are going to be really small because they're on the mountains in the distance, so they don't need a lot of detail. I'm just going to pop some little trunks in. I'm just placing them where I think they will look good. So I'm not worrying too much at this point about where I'm putting them. I'm just placing them where they look nice to me. So I'm just putting a few little lines of paint to represent the branches on the fir trees. You could do any type of tree you fancied here. And again, these are going to get much, much smaller the further away they get. So this one that's a little bit closer to the foreground, I'm going to make a little bit bigger than the others. This will give the sense that your trees are disappearing into the background. I'm using my brush very lightly here. I'm barely putting any pressure on it as I put these little branches onto the trees. Finally, I'm going to add some rocks and blades of grass to the foreground because the foreground is looking a little bit plain at the moment. I'm going to use the same green that I used for the branches of those fir trees. Just doing some little lines there, they're curved slightly. It's never necessary to draw every single blade of grass. Just drawing a few blades will give the sense that there's grass there. So you don't have to draw every single blade of grass. Going to add some darker green to the grass as well. So we've got a few different colours there. I think that a few different colours looks quite nice. Finally, I'm going to add some rocks around the base of the river. These will appear large in comparison to the hill because again they're much closer to us than the hills are, so we'll see them a bit bigger. I think I'm going to put a couple of rocks around the base of the tree. Again, like with the hills, to make them look three-dimensional, I want to show that the light is coming from one side. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit of shadow to one side of the rock. Again, because the paint's still wet, I can blend it so that there isn't such an obvious division between the two colours. And I'm done! Well done for completing your landscape composition. Now you've got some landscape ideas. What other scenes could you draw? You could create a beach or add more animals and people to your landscapes. I'd love to see your finished pieces. Please tag us on social media with photos of your final artworks. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye!